Hi, everybody. Welcome to Queers and Soaps. I'm Tommy, and today I'm joined by Eric
Claudia.
and Dayna. Just Dayna.
Hey, I don't want to be anyone in this
And today we are continuing our trek through season 1 of Dynasty. We've got a lot to talk about, so I'm just going to jump right into it with the credits, and we will get into the story. So we lightly touched on some of the stuff in the earlier episodes with the honeymoon.
Right.
This was the episode. So, okay. When I think back to old Dynasty, I remember liking Joseph, and I know that I probably didn't like him in this episode, but I was like, wow, you're a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Disrespect is the word I use. Like, I don't know about you guys, but for something about like the dynamic between him and Crystal feels so incredibly wrong, considering to me they were on the same level. Like she was a working woman. She's not rich,
Yeah.
didn't know what she was getting into at all. And you would think Joseph would be like help her out, but no, he feels like above her, and it's
Yeah.
I can't.
It's almost like he's in love with Blake. So he's jealous.
For sure.
So did you guys really understand like the dynamic between Walter, Matthew, and whatever company they're doing and Blake? Like, I feel like if this business venture fails, they're afraid Blake will swoop in and like buy them out or something. Is that what they're doing?
I think what they're trying to do is that Walt had a like feeling, like a vibe. He like touches the ground and like knows where oil's gonna be. So like he convinced Matthew that there's oil here. So like you know the geology, I know how to get the rig together, I got a crew, we can get it together, we can make a bunch of millions of dollars, and once we hit, they're gonna sell it off to literally the first person that like will give us the best thing. But they haven't hit oil really yet.
Right.
They're still digging.
Right.
And then Blake is dealing with the bullshit on over in the Middle East that Matthew came from. So he's like having a time, all his oil's getting tied up. So he's kind of looking for avenues to make more money like he always does. So like the whole is kind of tempting. And again, like Blake has, the way I see it, has an underlying motive because of Crystal.
Right.
So like everything that's going on with Matthew, no matter what it is, he's got to get his fingers in it, destroy it, buy it, whatever, because it's Matthew specifically. That's what I think anyway.
Okay. Well, speaking of Matthew, we also talked about him forcing Claudia to drive when she wasn't ready.
Yeah. Oh God. Like the top note is Matthew never listens to Claudia. Like Claudia tries to tell him, I'm not here yet. Like the diner, the car, all of it. And he's like, I don't care, girl. I need you here.
Right.
So I don't have to deal with my kid. Because I got other kids.
Steven takes a job with Matthew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet. Fun. Blake loves that.
Yeah.
Of course.
And Claudia actually ends up getting the courage to drive. And she brings lunch to have with Matthew, but he's not there. And she actually ends up giving Steven a sandwich.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to be too spoilerly or fangirly over Steven, but I love him in every single scene. I always get so happy, especially when the two of them are together. Oh gosh, I love it. He makes her happy.
I am invested in these characters more than I remembered being. I always liked Claudia. I remembered that part. And Steven separate, but together. I get it. There's a vibe.
That's a vibe.
They're so self-aware. Like Claudia understands, like she's not in a good place. She hasn't been in a good place in a long time. She understands the relationship between her and Matthew's strained. She's also has all of his problems. They're like perfectly two damaged people that meet each other
Mhm.
and are open and communicative with each other about their
Mhm.
feelings.
Mhm.
Complete opposite of every single other relationship on the show up until this
It's
point.
true.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a breath of fresh air. It's what I wrote down. I was like, they're just so refreshing compared to
it
like
is.
everyone else because of the drama.
Yeah.
This is the first episode that I noticed that there were things that were said that were going to happen that didn't happen until the following episode, like inviting
Mhm.
Matthew and his wife over to dinner. That didn't happen in
Yeah.
the following episode. Which,
Oh, right.
Crystal's like, why are they coming over for dinner?
It's a ploy. It's all a ploy.
um,
Yeah.
so I was a little bit confused. So Fallon and Cecil, they haven't been carrying on behind their back. This is like Fallon coming on to him, pretty much.
I think so. I don't think they've had a thing yet or anything.
Yeah, I
Well,
had always remembered it that maybe they had been like had a previous like relationship, and this was just them showing it to us. But that's not really how it played
yeah.
out.
I think she just wants them.
I think
Daddy
she has
issues.
daddy issues.
They
He's
both
got
have daddy
daddy,
issues.
right? And he's exciting, and powerful. Fallon's okay. I don't know
Mhm.
how far forward we're gonna go, but like it kind of explains in the next episode a little bit. Like they actually did have like a little bit of a dalliance
Hmm.
in the parts of between her relationship with Jeff, like how that's supposed to work out.
Right.
So they do reference that they actually got physical together at one point or another, and she's like, "I want to be with you," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
gosh, it's hard to watch.
So, but also this is because Blake seems to be struggling financially, and he needs a bailout. So this is also
Yeah.
why
Right?
he's having the dinner because
Yeah, it's
he's
because of the Middle East thing. The
right.
country that he was drilling in locked up all of his oil so he can't sell it. So that's why he's also looking at Matthew's properties because he's like, well, I also want Matthew to be under my thumb because I want him to be because him and Crystal
Right.
obviously still have a thing going on. But
Right.
also I
Right.
need the oil kind of thing too at the same
Yeah,
time.
he's using that thing with Crystal. That's why Crystal feels used, but she is being used.
And that's the emotional component to the decision making, I think, for him. That
Hmm.
like this
Yeah.
is like a one stone scenario for I think for Blake because
Yeah,
Blake
yeah.
is super
You're right.
jealous. Like anytime he's even mentioned, he's like Matthew, what? Why are you calling his name?
Right.
Like you know,
He's
like
trying
you should have existed to begin
he's
with.
trying to be like a puppet master, but like
Yeah.
he has to try to keep them under control somehow, which is I
Right.
guess is hard
Yep.
to do.
Agreed.
So Cecil kind of like pushes Fallon off and is like, "No, you're gonna marry Jeff." And she's like, "I don't want Jeff." And he's like, "Too bad." He's like, "You want me to help your father?" So in a way, this is kind of her
Yeah.
way of helping her daddy, her real daddy.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it
Hmm.
all goes right back around to Blake. Like
Yeah.
even anything she does, is always about. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, we had discussed, the staff not respecting Crystal and the flower man, the florist being fired, and
Yeah.
then
Mhm.
so they kind of replicated that scene in the reboot almost verbatim because I remember when it
Yeah.
happened, I was like, wow, they really just went line for line with that, huh?
Yeah.
It was pretty pivotal because it's like Crystal, learn your place, or
Right.
you're not going
Hmm.
to learn your place. You need to learn your place in some way. Gotta get yourself together in here. And she's just like, all right, fine.
Right.
I'm gonna work it out.
She was still
Yeah.
feeling like the staff herself. So yeah,
Right.
she's not.
She was yeah, that's why it's so kind of frustrating to see how they all react to her. Because I would have thought they would prefer someone that was probably understand what they were went through, or do for these people on a regular basis.
Mhm.
But they're like, nah, no
Um,
thanks.
I get a chuckle at the fact that they feel the need to put to be continued at the end of every episode. Like,
Yeah.
it's a soap opera, we know. Like, the story's not over.
It was one of the first though. I think what was it? Dallas was first, and then I think that was second,
Yeah, but
right?
they
Or the
never put to be
Shockwave.
continued. They just kept going.
Right, but they, like back then, I guess they were just like getting you used to it because it does stop. I think on like the last one or two episodes, I think it stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think even it might go away for one episode and then it comes back. Like they forgot.
Yeah,
Oh
like
yeah.
when it's particularly dramatic, they hit us with the to be continued, and I'm
Yeah.
Amazon Prime right now. There is no to be continued for me. I will be continuing.
Right.
Like just
I'm
You
not
will
waiting
not
10
stop
days.
us. Right.
So the next episode is the dinner party. And so far I am loving Crystal's dresses and Fallon's dresses. I think they both look really good in everything they wear. I did kind of feel like Crystal's dress was not glamorous enough, like a little too casual compared to how everybody else was dressed.
it was simple.
Yeah, it
Fallon's
was
was
simple.
everything.
Yes.
Back. Oh, I loved it. Like Fallon in this season, I love everything that she's wearing in this season. I think her hair is perfect. They're like just right on the cusp of the 70s, like going into the 80s. You can start to see like where the shoulder pads are starting to come in, like the billowier sleeves, like before
Yeah.
the real like sharp, severe like angles. But yeah, I love this Fallon. I think she's gorgeous. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all gorgeous.
You could
Honest.
see like the transition from the 70s to the 80s with the hair also. Because I feel like
Oh
because it's
yeah.
81, it's still kind of wispy, like Farrah Fawcett hair.
Yeah.
Yes, Fallon's like that perfectly coiffed, like it's flat, but then it kind of just goes into these beautiful like S curls at the bottom, and it's like voluminous but like sleek at the same time.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's got a real lot of amazing outfits, especially
Jesus,
there's this one
Fabergé.
where what it's so good.
So, I mean, I know I'm kind of jumping all around, but I found it funny that Steven didn't attend the party. He was just like locked away in the library while everybody else was having dinner.
I don't think he wanted to be a part of that. Yeah.
He wanted no parts of that. He knew it would be a shit show.
Yeah. And then of course Claudia finds him literally after
I
she's
know.
peeping, literally clocking Matthew and Claudia. Like the first
Matthew and
glance, she was like,
yeah.
already, boom, what's going on here? Like
Yeah.
instantaneous.
Um,
Oh man,
And she let it
that's a
be.
packed
She let
episode.
it go.
But
Fallon
yeah,
puts her plan to seduce Jeff into play per Cecil.
but
Mm.
she goes out, they
Well, see,
smoke a
yeah.
Um, Matthew and Crystal have a little conversation outside, and he admits that he still cares about her now that she's married.
of course.
And she's
This
like,
whole
"Are
mess.
you?" She's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I was perfectly fine being the side chick. Like, you should have told me."
He said at
Yeah,
the hill when they went to the unnecessary hill.
Right.
yeah, that was weird.
And he kind of admits that he did it so that she would marry him, like that she would move on. And she was like, "That was my decision to make." And of course, stoned Fallon overhears this whole conversation.
Just what she needed.
Right.
Well, yeah, because she's like hawkish because of her dad. Again, back to Blake. She only cares about Blake's happiness. So she wants to make sure Crystal's not a gold digger, right?
Right.
And also she had the affair like with Matthew literally not too long before then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like she's waiting in the wings, ready just to snatch up any opportunity to hold something over her head the minute she can.
Right.
I have to point out in this episode we had a guest star, Catherine Lee Scott from the original Dark Shadows was Maggie. Did you catch that, Tommy?
No.
She was involved with she was the British one involved with Michael, right?
Oh, that okay. I'm sorry, but like
Okay.
was that in the dinner party episode? Because Michael Culhane during all of that, I did not understand. Like, why? Why is he getting
Michael's he's really complicated. I think he's just trying to get money. So he's just getting himself involved in all of this shit to get more money.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to blackmail Fallon for money. He's trying to like do whatever he's got to do.
Yeah, sometimes I can't read him. I can't read if he genuinely has feelings for Fallon because he seems like he gets jealous.
I think he does. I think a lot of what he's
does.
doing, especially when he like tattletales on her about the
Mhm.
deal or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
Does he think that telling her dad and breaking up whatever's happening with Cecil and Jeff, like her and Jeff, ultimately is gonna like ingratiate him to Fallon or to Blake? Like, do you think like you guys can be together because you decided to break up our two rich people's relationship?
Yeah.
I don't. He's just dumb. I just think of him as super dumb because he sticks his nose into things. Doesn't already immediately goes, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should just close the conversation, like, because obviously I overstepped my bounds. Oh
Yeah, he
God, he
almost gets
was.
fired a lot.
He almost gets fired a lot.
Yeah.
So as the lady of the manor, Crystal is called to take control of Fallon and what's his name? Jeff. I want
Jeff,
to call him Jack.
who's
Jeff.
in Maryland, by the way.
Who are skinny dipping. High.
Dipping
Yeah.
in the pool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
Stone.
Fallon kind of throws in her face verbatim what was said between her and Matthew, and we get a dramatic freeze to be continued.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Jeff,
I think it's perfect. I don't
Jeff was a
condone
cute pothead.
Yeah, he was.
I wrote down like, oh my God, Jeff is a nerd.
Yeah.
Why would you do
It's
that?
funny because they're in
That's illegal.
Colorado, so I was like, that was one of the first states for it to be legal. I'm like, I don't know about back then, but like,
Yeah. And like I was like, Jeff is a square. He's just a square. He's literally like not a loser. He's just too straight laced for Fallon. That's why Fallon doesn't love him. She doesn't
Yeah.
love him, and she doesn't want to be with him because he's boring. Just that's it,
Right.
straight up.
I
And
found it
everybody
funny
loves
how in the next episode he felt the need to come over and apologize. And he said, I guess I had one too many drinks. And Fallon's like, you had 2 drinks. She's like, we smoked. She like takes the
smoked the
newspaper and she starts rolling it up.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that was perfect. That whole breakfast was amazing. Just because Fallon was just coming for literally every single person's throat at that table. Like,
Even
no, Jeff,
Steven,
you
she
had
was
it.
like, he's like a ball of anxiety. And I'm just like, because he's like struggling with his sexuality.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, like, oh my God, there's so much there to unpack with Steven. But like, he also had his first like interaction with Claudia too. So like, I'm sure he's super duper confused about like what's happening there because you could tell
Right.
the is definitely there.
So Greg walked
but
in
yeah.
as I was watching some of this, and he saw some of the TED stuff, and he's like, "Oh, right," and I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What year is this?" I'm like, "81." And then like he walks in, I'm like, him and Claudia kissing, and he's like, "Wait," and I'm like, "Yeah, they do that a lot on the show."
Yeah.
I was like, they didn't have the vocabulary to say he was pansexual back then, so they just went with gay and bisexual because that's all like society could handle at that point mentally.
Right.
Yeah.
It was really confusing for the audience, I feel like. I was always confused.
So Greg was like, "Oh, so he's attracted to the person." I'm like, "Right." I'm like, pretty much.
He says it too. He's like, I'm just in love with a person. Like at one point when him and Fallon are talking, at one point that's what he says. I'm like, he's so wonderful. I love him.
I know.
I find it funny that an episode that's titled Fallon's Wedding literally was just like her like coming in drunk with Jeff, being like, "We went to Vegas and got married." The end. Like that was the wedding.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't remember them getting married, but they didn't actually get married on screen. They just show up married.
Yeah, I forgot about that too. I was expecting you would think a big lavish wedding, but I guess that was just like she didn't want to do it, so she was just going to do it discreetly.
It just feels like a missed opportunity on a glamorous show, or what's supposed to be a glamorous show, to have her in like this fancy wedding dress.
Yeah.
Because they did it. They did it in the first season of Dynasty, of the reboot.
Oh, yeah. I made a note in this that somebody calls, don't they call Steven a prevert? I'm like,
a prevert. Yeah. Greg was in the room for that because he was like, a prevert? I'm like, yeah, because he kept saying it.
Is that how you say pervert? But or maybe
Colorado.
or were they just like say like he was just like a douchebag being like don't know how to say it. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, no, I think the guy is just I hated that guy too because I'm like,
I hated him too.
bro. Like, why do you need to get yourself involved in stuff that has literally nothing to do with you? You could just live your life free. Steven's not doing anything to you. He hasn't done anything. Why go out of your way? And then also at the same time, like they threw the F word out there a bunch of times in the subsequent episodes. So like the fact that this guy was like walked to the line of bigotry and decided to not completely cross it by using pervert, it's kind of like, oh, you are the worst. Like
Well,
just get out of here.
they use 2 F words. They use fruit also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. They're all dancing around like what you would imagine someone who had those views would actually say. So it's like
Mhm.
he's scared, quote unquote, because he knows what he's saying is wrong. Like that's like you got to be kidding me. Like you know, get the fuck out of here. Like you're the worst. I
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
believe I can't believe Walter thought he could just like cure him by bringing him to a bordello.
That was
And then afterwards he's like, "See, I knew I could fix you." I'm like, what?
Seriously, I was thinking the same. Like, so in the beginning of that episode, there's a bunch of times I wrote the only good thing about Matthew is the fact that he treats Steven like a person. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
he's aware of like him. I'm sure he has understanding of like the rumors about him or whatever, but he doesn't give a
Mhm.
shit. He's just like, whatever. Show up, work. I don't care. Do whatever you're gonna do in your own private. I could care less. Perfect.
Right.
Beyond. And then so when he's talking to Walt, I'm thinking, oh, Walt's kind of like, oh, I don't care, whatever. He, that's just something guys do.
Yeah.
It's like a phase or whatever. And I'm like, okay, so maybe he's not a homophobe. Perfect. I kind of like Walt a little bit more. Then as the episode went along, I'm like, oh, no. He's trying to fix him.
Yeah.
He's not cool anymore. I hate this every single second of this. I felt his embarrassment and pain while he's sitting there, like trying to talk to the oh God, what was her name? Was named Mary, like the prostitute that he was sitting in the room with.
Something Pat.
Something
He
Pat.
Oh
he made
yeah,
friends with her.
Yeah, they
yeah. Like of course,
they watch TV together. That's what they
Sarah
do.
Pat.
so he's like getting mad because he's like, I can't have sex with you. I'm tired. I'm going through a lot of emotional trauma right now. I can't just do it. And she's like, oh,
Can't just do it.
ew. Like, took it personally. I'm like, just let this poor man live.
And this all happened after Matthew and Claudia had him over for dinner. And Matthew went upstairs to help Lindsay study.
Yeah.
And Claudia and him had a moment and they kissed. Because in the beginning of the Bordello episode, Steven's acting a little weird because, he's like, I kissed my boss's wife. Like, so he's still trying to process like what happened between him and Claudia. He even called her to apologize, even though he wasn't really sorry. And she was like, she wasn't sorry that it happened either.
Sorry, not sorry.
Actually, rewinding, when they had the whole sandwich meeting, when they met for the first time in person, I was like, oh, is this like their meet cute? Like, this is how they start?
Yeah.
Like when they first called looking for Matthew and they realized who they were talking to each other, I was like, this is it. This is where they meet. I can't believe this is how they meet. And they meet for the lunch. And I was just like, oh my God. I'm like, this is how they talk. Rewatching it, so like rewatching it fills in so much underneath the layers. The actors are doing so good. I can't tell you how well this like show is really acted. Oh God,
It really is.
I love.
I have to say, I'm
very
actually enjoying season 1 more. I guess because I'm paying closer attention.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm seeing the layers.
It's a good season. It's good. It's well written.
I guess when I first watched it, I just wanted Alexa so bad. I was like, can we just get to her?
Oh man, I miss her too. There was a moment where I shined through a little bit through Fallon.
So there was a scene where Claudia was in therapy and she's crying, talking about Matthew and like knowing that there was a possibility that he was with other women, but she's like, he was a man, he has needs, and that's how I like compartmentalized it, is that they just satisfied his need at the moment. And then she mentions that they were at a dinner party a week ago, and she's like, and she feels like she met one of them.
She clocked right away.
And I was like, wow, Claudia's no slouch. She's very observant.
Yeah, she is.
Oh, that therapist though, I was ready to slap his head, like just like, dude, killing me right now. He's just kind of like, just tell me, just speak, like
Yeah.
tell me how you're feeling. She is telling you. She's trying to say like, I have no idea if this woman actually had an encounter with him, but I felt it in my soul that I met her. I don't
So,
know for sure.
so that wipes away my whole theory that she found out about the affair and had a mental breakdown.
Yeah. Because later on, when
Yeah.
that asshole coworker comes into her bookshop, it confirms that because just slowly wants to just tell you some things to stir up your entire life. And I
And
know
then
you
be
have
like, oh, I
like,
shouldn't say anymore. I've said too much. Yeah, okay, you're so innocent.
get out of here. You ignore or you don't. See, that's the whole thing about him that I hate. It's like he does these half measures things. It's like, if you're gonna be that awful, just be all the way awful. Don't pretend like you're being right when you're really in fact being the worst person alive. That's kind of what you're doing.
So the actor
But yeah.
that played Ted, he appeared more than I remembered. I knew that he came on early in the season, then he's on later for at least the finale or the second to last.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that he kind of is sprinkled in throughout the season.
Yeah. He like comes in, like that whole interaction at the restaurant was really heartbreaking to watch. It was so hard to watch because you could tell he just really is in love with Steven, like a lot. And they spent a long time together to be like living together
for a year,
building a life.
and Steven always like brushes it. He doesn't brush it off. He's dealing with a lot, but he always says that they were friends. And Ted's like, "I love you." What are you talking about? We'll be together forever.
Fuck buddies.
A live-in fuck buddies.
Well, I think like, doing the White Fang thing, like if I treat him like garbage, if I diminish our relationship, he'll disconnect from me. So I can just go off and do my own thing. I think he's trying to like tell Ted without telling Ted straight up, I can't be with you. I'm too scared. I got to deal with what's going on with my family.
Right.
What we had was great. To say it
And
very clear and
he even admits to Ted because he's like you're hiding it from your family. You can't be yourself. And he's like, they know, or his father knows at least. And he's like, I take it that didn't go well. He's like, nope.
And a half, it did not go well.
So the scene that I didn't remember that I was like, ooh, I'm really interested in this was when Fallon was at the airport and she had Ted called to the desk and she's like, trade in your ticket, I'll fly you on the private jet to where you need to go. So I was
that whole conversation.
I wasn't sure which way it was going to go. I wasn't sure if she was going to be like the good sister, like if you love my brother, just be with him, or if she was going to try and pay him off to stay away. Like I didn't know how it was going to go.
She channeled Alexis through that whole conversation. I felt like was what Alexis would have said, because she's very much like, listen, I understand what you guys love each other, but this is not the reality, and he lives in a different life than you. So like you gotta have to let him go, and whatever happens between you, it's over, kind of thing.
But they ended up bonding, right? Is this the episode they bonded in, or was that later?
Yeah, he like asked her if she ever went to like a lobster restaurant, and he asked her to go to lunch or dinner with him, which I wanted to see. I wanted to continue the conversation.
I know. I thought they clicked well, and I'm like, oh, she's trying to like understand Steven, which I like too,
Because I felt like seeing them continue to hang out and like go to dinner, we would see her soften to the relationship and maybe come around to it.
I think it's of the time, at like the way she's reacting kind of like speaks to the time period that they're currently living in. So she's gonna be like, there's no path forward for them, like to her. So like, why would you cut Steven off from all this wealth and power, which is what I think I wrote down with like, Fallon wants wealth and power. She doesn't understand wanting anything else. Steven does not want the wealth and power. He just wants to be loved for who he is. She can't get that. She's like, why would you give up love and power and money for love? That makes no sense to her. So for her, it's like, why would Ted? Why keep doing this? Because it's only going to stop you from getting power and money.
Right.
So it's like, get there.
So the asshole in these episodes sabotages the rig to make it look like Steven didn't do his job correctly. And poor Steven's like hanging upside down, just swinging, blood rushing to his head. And when
So
when the guys were getting him down and they were like all like carrying him, I was like, "Ooh, touch his butt!" Like, because they're like, because at this point they all know. Like,
Right.
there was a scene where that guy came for him, stuck his butt out, like as he's walking by to taunt, like I guess tease Steven
Yeah.
about it.
yeah,
He like, stuck his butt out. I was like, you know what? It's always the call coming from inside the house. You know what I mean? It's always extra about that shit is always someone who's probably not necessarily fully straight themselves, you know, and they want to just
You're right.
push off. Yeah, that's was
Yeah.
the vibe I was getting. I was like, this guy's probably a little somewhere along the lines, you know.
I almost felt like he was like doing it.
He liked it.
Yeah. Like he was getting into it, like a little bit too much, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
So Steven goes to his father to ask him to loan Matthew money, I think, and he says, "I'll come work for the company." And Blake was a little bit of a dick in this scene.
Yeah.
He's just like,
he falls
"Oh."
on the sword.
He's like, "You're gonna come work for the company?" And he's like, "Yes, sir." Like there was a lot of yes sirs happening, and then Blake was like, "No." He's like, "I'm not gonna do this to help your friend."
Yeah.
Because it's Matthew.
Because it was for Matthew. He
Right.
said it. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna do all this for Matthew," and he's like, "Well, you know, Matthew treated me like a human being and not a monster like you do. So yes, for Matthew." And then Blake's like, "Nah."
Yeah. So when
And
Steven leaves, Crystal gets up and she's kind of like looking out the window. And I laughed. It was a dick line, but I laughed because he's like, "What? You have thoughts?" Like, he's like, Crystal. I was like, "Yeah, she has thoughts. She has opinions."
of course, she just wants to smack the total asshole to your son. Oh, but she had a perfect response because she's like, "Yeah, I thought," and I was just thinking about how beautiful this house is and how ugly at the same time, and I'm like, "Oh, yes, get it." I don't know what this was like. Basically, what he's doing, but Blake had a great also retort to that. He's like, "You're living in pie in the sky dreams, girl. Like, I can't be." Like showing all my cards because like again it's like all after the dinner party, it's all the mess with Matthew, like she thinks that Blake is just pulling Matthew in to destroy him, which he is.
Yeah.
Let's just be real, that's exactly what he's doing, but he's
Totally.
pretending to Crystal that he's not. Like, I have no, oh, it's all business. It's like, no, it's not. Like, come on, get over here.
So
But yeah,
now that Fallon and Jeff are married, Cecil transferred the money that was supposed to cover Blake over. And he has Crystal woken up in the middle of the night to like his library that's like full. Everybody's wide awake and working. And he has them all clear the room. And he wants Crystal to sign paperwork that would actually make her like a chief officer of these like dummy corporations where he could hide his assets.
Right.
So I'm watching this and Greg left because it was calm when he left. And then he's like, "Why is he yelling at her?" Because she questioned Andrew saying, "Is this legal?" He's like, "I just told you." I'm like, calm down.
This is the second time Andrew Laird did this. Showed up with some paperwork, telling Crystal to sign some legal documents.
And she mentioned
not telling her what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just sign it. And she's like, "Is it again like the same kind of legal documents you had me sign at my wedding? Like, so I just kind of sign my life away to you people? Like, no problem."
Right.
Yeah. And I love what's crazy about that scene that really kills me. She comes in, she asks Blake directly, "What do you need from me?" And Blake's like, "Talk to Andrew." And then that's it, right? And so Andrew actually, he doesn't even say anything to Crystal. Andrew comes up and says, "Crystal, sign these papers." She shoves them like in her face, like, "Can you sign these papers?" And she's like, "What?" And then he's like, "Come with me." And then like escorts her over because women don't know how to move on their own. He starts laying them out for her to sign, and she starts going like, "Why am I? Is this exactly like the other stuff I signed?" And then Blake decides to chime in and actually tell his wife what it is he needs her to sign. Like, come on.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
So I guess leading into the icky stuff that's going to happen towards the end, Blake says to Crystal how he can't wait for her to give him a child. And she kind of is like, oh, yeah, I can't wait, Daddy. I'm going to pop my pills.
Right. You just reminded me. I got to get my pills.
Yeah. They dropped it a couple times throughout the episodes. Like, I think the contract thing was one episode, and then the next episode he kept saying, like, I want to have your baby. I want to have your baby. I want a baby by you, specifically by you. And he's just like, okay. Got the baby,
And because
okay.
he needs a straight male heir. That is what
Yes.
he needs.
Straight.
One's gay and one's a girl, and you can't do that. You can't have that.
I laughed because he had said that they named Steven after his ex-wife's father, I think. He's like, she wanted to name him Blake, but I didn't think that was appropriate or whatever. And he's like, do you think that changed? Like, because they didn't name him Blake, that's why he's gay. Like, do you think that affected him? No, an infant doesn't know why you named him what you named him.
There's some things that I can't let it slide. I don't care what time period this is. It's like, that was not okay then. It's not okay now. Like, it's just
Like, if I gave him a manly name like Blake, he wouldn't be into dick. Like,
Yeah, right.
Exactly like that light of a name. Like, it's very much a guy's name, masculine forward. Like, I can't. Either way, like, it matters. It doesn't matter. It's stupid. It's stupid then. It's stupid now.
I almost wish they did like a movie like Dallas did, like the prequel where you got to see them as
the
kids.
early years, yeah.
Yeah, the early years.
Yeah.
Like I wish they did something like that in Dynasty because I would love to see how Alexis and Blake were together and stuff like that. Like they don't really go
They
into
could do
it
that
in the
now. I'd watch that so much. If they did like a younger Blake, like when they first met. Oh man, I'd watch
Probably
that so much.
that's probably what should have been like the reboot maybe should have been like that. But
Oh,
they could always
yeah,
still do
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
yeah. Would they
Or
live
that
in
could
the
have been like a spin-off of the reboot. Like if they did,
Yeah.
they were gonna do something like that with Gossip Girl. They did like one episode
Yeah.
where they showed the parents when they were younger, and that was supposed to be like the backdoor pilot, and it just didn't get picked up.
Yeah,
But,
I remember that.
but okay, so Crystal. Oh, so remember how I said we'd never see any of her friends from the pilot again? We did. We saw the one that was like clutching
Yeah.
her pearls over the sex book. She was playing tennis with her.
And she was a little bitchy. She was a little
Oh
jealous.
yeah.
She was well. Crystal's so sorry because I guess she was a little aggressive. She's like, tennis is like a blood sport around here.
Did it really look like they were playing aggressively? Like genuinely? Did you look at it and went, wow, man, they're really hitting the ball hard? No, she was just going.
No.
And they had 2 against 1. They were against her.
Of course.
And her friend's like, well, maybe if I had tennis lessons like she did, like I'd be as good or whatever. And then Crystal like comforts her, like she's right. She's like, no, I understand. And then it goes to commercial.
Oh, I
I'm like, what?
You never catch me coming over to be like, ew, rude. Jeez,
So
ever.
Crystal wants to help Matthew in secret. So she goes to her friend who apparently has connections with people that can replicate real jewelry or furs or whatever. And she wants to see if she can get her diamond necklace that Blake gave her replicated to look real so she could sell the real thing and get the money.
Yeah.
It's so good stuff.
It's funny because the last episode was called Crystal's Lie, and I'm like, which lie though? Because she's been lying a lot.
She has. Crystal's lies.
Oh my god! So like the first time I saw this episode, I was like infuriated at Blake, like just from the top, about the ending, the whole nine, like the lead up. I don't think I was paying attention really closely enough to what Crystal specifically was doing leading up to this situation. So like now that I've been like hawkishly looking at everybody's actions, what they're doing, I'm just kind of like, Crystal, the whole time, like, what are you doing? Like, this is not the way, girl. Like, this is like literally walking slow motion train crash that you're like, stop talking to Matthew. Like, just leave him alone.
Yeah. So she pays him a visit in the middle of the night at the work site. He's alone. She offers him the money. He rejects it at first, but he eventually comes around. And
Yeah.
he says, "How long do you need for me to pay you back?" And she says, "The 6 months sound good." So they agree on that. And then they get a little hot and heavy. And I'm like, I'm still not feeling the chemistry between you guys. And they end up on the couch, but she gets up and she's like, "I can't give you something else that belongs to Blake." And I was like, oh, okay, your coochie belongs to Blake? All right. Did he like brand you? Like it's like she'll do everything else, but she will not be unfaithful.
Right.
She'll make out with you for a solid 5 minutes, but the minute and lean back. Like again, like all the actions and the words are not coming together. Like it's kind of like she's saying all the no, but then like as she played it, the actress who played it just kind of like lean completely back. Not a problem. Totally into this. It's like that's it.
I like her
I love
blurry
it.
moral code. Like she is okay being with the other woman, but she will not break her marriage vows.
That's right. Not get to the physical intimacy that anyone would like. I do like the fact that he accepted her consent, her retractal of consent. That was always nice to see. But the way the actor who plays Matthew, he just doesn't have a lot of range. And and Blake calls it out. He's always this steel cold expression. Like there's never like a lot of ups or downs for Matthew. He's either like stone cold or fighting you, physically fighting you through everything. So it's kind of like that whole interaction felt very much one-sided for me because Crystal's like that again, the actress playing Crystal, she's acting her ass off through the whole thing and giving serious, I'm still in love with you vibes. I want to be with you so badly still, enough to forge a necklace worth millions of dollars to then give the money to you so you could survive.
She's risking her marriage big time.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost wonder if them showing him respecting her boundaries was to mirror that Blake does not. To be like, look, Matthew's the better person. He respects her boundaries. When she said no, he stopped. Like
that's an amazing
could be
point. That's a great take. I love that's wow. Yeah. Great filmmaking then. Love the story writing.
We should probably talk about Lindsay. She had a few things going on. She was kind of messed up.
Should we have shots every time she cries?
So I remember not liking Lindsay, and it still holds up.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, she's going through a lot, though.
So
she's going through a lot.
When the boy tried to force himself on her, I get it. That was a traumatic situation. She wasn't ready. Fine. But I wasn't really looking really close. Was her hearing her parents talk, was it the fact that she feels like they only got married because she got knocked up, the thing that like traumatized her and she just had to cry for the whole episode? Like she had to go to the records to see when they got married and everything.
Yeah, she saw the records or whatever.
Yeah, she takes everything on. Like every single thing that happens, like the trauma with her mom having a nervous breakdown, like that whole interaction coming home. She like took it as like her personal responsibility to like the reason why everything's going on. Like her mom happy because of her. They got together because of her. And like they're unhappy now because they got together so early in life because of her. So she's taking it all in. And when she said she was 14, I was like, oh, now I understand all the tears and the severe like reaction to all this because girl's not even fully like through puberty yet.
Right.
She's going through all of it.
I wish they would have showed like a prequel in this, like a flashback, because I almost feel like Claudia probably broke down in front of her, and it's traumatizing if someone breaks down in front.
They mentioned that she saw her mom like having a breakdown in the middle of the street, like
right. So it's probably very traumatizing.
Yeah,
that's why she tiptoes around her. Matthew doesn't help any with how he handles anything, so she's just a fucking mess.
If Lindsay had been in the reboot, she probably would have been so traumatized. She probably would have had like a drug addiction or like.
Oh yeah. They should have had Lindsay in the reboot. That would have been a good little addition. I feel like because they could have done a lot.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
could have had
Well, the
Claudia go crazy, and like Lindsay could have lived with them, kind of like, and whilst Claudia was away or whatever.
Well, it was the CW, so they would have went the exact opposite. She would have been like all sexed up and like probably throwing herself at every guy.
Yeah, right. 14-year-old
yeah.
hooker.
Well,
It
the
was
way they treated Sammy Joe and Kirby in the reboot, I feel like was a kind of way to have that kind of feeling of Lindsay in a weird way, because like
yeah,
Sammy Joe obviously comes, well, again, spoiler, it comes and goes, and Kirby same deal ish in a way, like not at the same, even close to the same personality in the reboot. Like either one of
Right.
them are
right.
completely different. So I feel like they probably took aspects of Lindsay's story, mixed it in probably with those two people
Yeah.
because they stay way longer. I feel like I haven't gotten out of Kirby yet, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Like I feel like kind of mismatched characters, like they did with Anders. Like they took Andrew Laird and Joseph and smashed them together into
You're
one
right. Yeah,
character.
they smashed them together because Anders was lovable in the new one. I
Yeah,
Yeah,
loved
he
him.
was. Yeah, he really was. And maybe that's what I'm
Like,
confusing is that I liked him in the reboot, but no, because I remember kind of liking Joseph, and then when he
you,
wasn't.
and
Oh, so
he gets better.
rewinding back to the whole disrespect of the staff.
Ah,
Crystal even tries again. She's like, "Can we be friends?" And he's like, "I don't think that would be appropriate." And he even tries to say, "If you're trying to threaten to fire me, I can get a job somewhere else." And then Crystal's like, "All right, I got something for that ass." She's like, "Will you still get a job easily if I give them a recommendation talking about how insubordinate you are?" I was like, "Yes."
I know. I loved it too.
And he was like, "I suppose that would make things a little bit more difficult."
yeah. And I think that was like the first time Crystal felt like her oats, like, oh,
Yeah,
power,
But
and I
but
can
but
move
she
around a little.
but she
that
got
was when she
upset
was going
with
to the
herself.
seating arrangement for the dinner party because he was like not budging, and she was like,
Yeah, absolutely.
But she still got upset with herself, and when she went like stormed off, kind of, and just like sat there, like she felt bad like about it. I'm like,
"Yeah." She like walked
what are
away
you
all
doing,
confident, like,
girl?
"Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry."
Yeah.
Oh,
She
so
doesn't
tough,
like
so
to
tough.
be that way.
Yeah.
She
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
like to do
Yep.
that.
No, but she's a normal person. That's the thing about Crystal that one of the best things about her, even though she's like incredibly flawed in this first season. Subsequent seasons,
Sure.
really like leans into like the character type I feel like she is, but she's like the only normal one amongst them all, like who kind
Yeah.
of keeps herself a little bit level grounded, that like things aren't as crazy as it seems, she's not as unhinged, and like that's why when her and Steven like finally connect, it's like one of the best things because they're like life preservers for each other in a
Yeah,
way, like
Yeah,
in
for
this
sure.
yeah, so
I
like
liked. I liked
that,
after she reprimanded him how she went back into the kitchen and she told everybody they were doing a really good job. And she said to
right,
him, she's like, "I'll talk to Mr. Carrington about getting you a raise." And I'm like, "He's not money. He doesn't have money to give me a raise.
I
He's
love it.
borrowing money." Like,
Right.
I think that
Oh,
that was
I
a power play on her part. That was a
right.
power play. She's like, I can get you a raise, motherfucker. So you
Yeah.
better be good.
that's
Be good to me.
I agree. 100% I agree. I feel like she just really like stepped into it, like leaned into like who these people need her to be in a way. Like they're expecting
Yep.
her to be a certain type of person, and being the other one, like where it's like understanding or knowing where to go through, that's not going to work for them. So she kind of picked up what they're putting down in a sense.
Yeah, for
Another
sure.
little tidbit I liked was when Jeff tried to tip Michael and he was like, "I get everything I need from the Carringtons."
Yeah,
Oh god,
right.
I can't with Michael or Jeff. I'm just kind of like, Michael doesn't know what he's doing. Jeff is too much of a noob and a nerd to know anything either. Like it's kind of like he's being led around by
Michael went to the
Fallon.
bank and was like, "Your children could probably end up in an accident if you don't give the loan to
Yeah.
Mr. Carrington."
No,
And
like
Blake
he just
and
go
Blake
ahead.
is fine with it. Like Blake was like, okay. It's all good.
I like it. You got moxie. You did the thing.
Right? Like he's like, I'm still getting fired. And then Blake's like, oh no, we'll keep you on. I
Yeah,
like
he
that.
like said that. It's so funny.
So the
Oh
episode
god.
that Fallon went to go see Ted, she had a conversation with Steven earlier, and this is what I remember, like her knowing, she knew. Because he's like, "How
Yeah.
did you know?" She's like, "I've been known." Like, I'm like, "Okay, so she did know in the pilot."
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is
I
probably
think
why
so.
she feels so like okay with just like poking at him, like his anxiety. Like, plus she's
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
little sister, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's always,
That's what you
as
do.
much as they love each other, there's still that power dynamic, you know, like Fallon still feels some type of way because she's a woman and he's like the heir apparent, quote unquote. Like, and I'm sure she felt like some sort of shift, like when she fully understand that Stephen wasn't exactly like on like the same level as she is in like what they wanted out of life.
yeah.
That's where I think they kind of like Stephen's just such a sensitive soul and he understands things on a different level because of all the stuff he's been through. He gives Fallon so much room to be absolutely out of control. Like the girl's just does whatever and
Yeah.
wherever at any time. God bless her, but like kind of like let the guy live. Like that's all I keep thinking through the whole thing. It's like just let Steven live. He just loves this guy.
Yeah.
Do the work. That's it. Like that's it.
I know.
Nothing else. Nothing is wrong.
I know.
In the last episode, Jeff is out of town for business, and apparently
Yeah.
Fallon's just going on dates. She's married, but she's still
Yeah.
going out. She comes home drunk.
Yeah, she
Why
was
not?
with her phone, telling Crystal, you're jealous. Like I wrote drunk Fallon, LOL, because she just comes in and is like, ew, Crystal. Like, aren't you mad that I got to go out and have fun and you're stuck here? Is like anyone else here? And then just saunters up the stairs to then bother even like a drunk person totally would. She played it well. I loved
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So then in the bedroom, I don't know if this was the same night, but Blake bumps into Crystal's nightgown and her birth control pills fall out.
Mm-hmm.
And he opens it and he sees that there's a few missing. So she's been taking them.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal comes home to find, oh, she had a night with the girls. That's what it was. Because I remember she came in with that fur.
Yeah, it was a separate night. Like that night when Fallon gave her, she goes out and looks wistfully to the dark. Like that was a great shot. But yes, it was a separate night. She was just out, and for some reason, she keeps her birth control in her robe.
Yeah, I thought that
Who
was
does
weird
that?
too.
Whatever.
I was
Great,
like,
keep
not
it.
contrivance, but okay.
Yeah, right.
Like it has a huge, with tons of drawer space, but it's got to be in the robe pocket.
Maybe
So when
she
she
thought he would
noticed
never go through her robe.
that the robe was
Maybe.
on the chair and she looked at it, I thought she was going to be like, you know, don't you? But I was like, oh, nope, she's playing it close to the chest. She's just like, and then he's like, are you looking for something? You looking for these?
Yeah, no, I thought when you look back, I legitimately assumed that she knew exactly why he was pissed. Because
Oh,
like
she
when
knew,
she
but she wasn't going to give it up just in case there was a
yeah.
small
Oh,
opportunity.
yeah.
Right.
Gave it all away. Didn't like she kind of just went, oh shit. Like, you know, in her mind. You could hear her saying, oh shit.
So can.
Yeah.
Which is why I think she went
Mhm.
over to the chair to pick up the robe, maybe to check the pocket to make sure it was still there.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So yeah,
1000%.
this was more violent than I remembered it being.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of flip-flop on what I will never really know unless we interview the creators. I feel like it was violent enough that maybe they were trying to show that marital rape happens. And the fact that she was saying no.
Yeah.
Because part of me also was like, it was 1981 and there was still very much the mindset of you do what your husband tells you to do, you're his property. Like, if he wants
Well, it
to.
was legal. Like it wasn't illegal from what
Yeah.
I've been told at that time to rape
Right.
your wife. Like if you were legally married and you forced sexual assault on someone that you're married to, you don't go to jail for it. It's kind of just like domestic disturbance, whatever, no big
Right.
deal.
I'm going to give the show
Definitely.
credit and say that they were trying to show that this happens. Because
Probably.
I could be making up memories, because I do that. I feel like the word rape does come up. I feel like she says you raped me. So, let's hope.
Like from what I know of, this is just what I've been told from Karen, Eric, and about like the history of the show, like when it was being made, and like all the little ins and outs between like actors that like the actor who's playing Stevie, he wanted to push forward more like that he legitimately was gay. So like they really wanted to tackle like stuff that wasn't necessarily like the most acceptable in family television, I guess, or like ABC or CBS or NBC or whatever. So
Mhm.
it doesn't really seem crazy out of the box that they would want to go after marital rape too. Like to say like this is what happens even in like what could be the richest families, like it's
Yeah.
not okay. It's probably supposed to be super uncomfortable because I was incredibly uncomfortable
Yeah.
watching
Right.
it. I felt like it ruined Blake for me completely. Like there was some glimmers here and there where you think like, oh, he's about his kids, like his family. He's a businessman, but like he's
Yeah.
maybe there's some underlying good there. He does the necessary evil type stuff. But when that happened, it's just kind of like, no, this just leans into the whole idea that like he doesn't like Steven because he is gay. And
Yeah.
like all those incredibly horrible, antiquated thoughts about family and what they're supposed to mean to the matriarch or the patriarch of the family, all that stuff is kind of like, oh, this just solidifies how old fashioned Blake is really at the end of the day. And he was drunk and
Yeah.
really, really mad about all this mess that was going on because he literally just said, I want to have babies with you. I want to have babies with you. I want to have a family. And then he's going through all his work. So this like feels like I'm making an apology for a rapist, but it's kind of like you see,
But
well, it's like
it's
you see the
true.
lead up. Like I felt like I noticed how we got here way more than before. Because at first I was just like,
Right.
ew, who does that? There's no
Yeah.
excuse. Don't get me wrong, none whatsoever for this to
Yeah.
happen.
Right.
Motivations are more clear to me after watching it like the second time. I was like, okay,
Right.
because Crystal's be lying. She's running around like doing stuff, telling one thing, doing another thing, and he just happened to find this one thing. And not that it's okay, but like
Right.
should have just left the room. Like
Well,
that was the end of it.
not to spoil anything from Knots Landing, but there's an incident with a character where the other one's drunk, and it's not as
Mhm.
violent as this, but he's handsy with the woman. And the next morning,
Yeah.
he's like, "I'm sorry if I was a little rough," and she just kind of is like, "I'm a big girl, I can handle it." And I was like, "Ooh,
So,
that's
yeah.
rough."
Yeah.
That's right.
um,
Only a couple episodes before, Matthew literally kidnaps Fallon in the limo, takes her to an undisclosed area in the woods, tells her to get out of the car, like as if he owns her, and then pushes her up against a tree and sexually assaults her, especially in the woods. She doesn't want him to kiss her. So, like in this show, it kind of happens a lot.
that was a
Women are just kind
frustrating
of
scene for me because again, that I feel like he's doing that because he like in a moment like that, I feel like it's because he's jealous. He cares about her. He
yeah,
doesn't
that's
understand
true.
why she's pushing him away when they had this thing. And then her, I was
Mhm.
trying to read her, like, does she want to, but she's not because she's married now? Because sometimes when they were, by the way, when they were kissing, he like swallowed her face. His lips were like
Yeah,
over her face.
pressed against her, like put his face on her face. Like she did not want that to happen. Oh my god,
But I
it was
also felt like
awful.
she wasn't putting up much of a fight. I don't know. Because now I feel like I'm making excuses for bad behavior.
That's what I mean. Like sometimes you're just sitting there, like there is no reason why anybody should be putting their hands on literally anyone without
Right.
consent. That's just the bottom line, right? But
And
again,
rape
this is
is not
also
okay.
no rape is never okay. Like
No.
never, ever, ever for whatever reason. I don't care how intoxicated or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
I would just say that.
The
But
first time
like
I watched this, I was basically like, "Fuck Blake forever." Like I did, and I still
yeah,
feel that way. He's
exactly.
never gonna be my favorite character ever.
All the
He's not.
men in the show except for Steven. That's it. He's the
He's
only one
not
who's
my.
good.
Blake isn't my favorite, but again, like I like with how stories play out and how people change. Like I feel like he's changed by the end of the series, which you'll get to eventually, Dana and Tommy.
Yeah,
But
I can I mean, like even now where I am, like further on in season 4, like yes, once like some where Crystal steps up, I guess, in some way where he feels like she's finally where he needs her to be. Again, like motivated. I don't care. Like there's some moment where Blake like decides to be a better person, but still, like
right,
even in other parts of the show, he's still making apologies for when people rape other people. Like there's so many other times when like sexual assault happens, and he's just like, well, you got to marry the person. And it's kind of
Right.
like, no, call the police, get them in prison. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, to me, like we'll probably talk about it when we get to the next episodes. How Chris handles the whole situation, but like Blake is dead to me now. I mean, all of them are dead except for Steven. Steven and the women are the only ones I care about, and I hope only good things happen. Everyone else can burn in fire for all I care.
There was a scene after Blake found out the reason why Fallon married Jeff, where he's like yelling at her for doing it. He's like, I don't need your help. Like, he's like, you were gone for years and I handled things. And so when she's like, she basically is like, so what do you want me to do? Get a divorce? And after he yelled at her for doing it, he's like, no, like he still needs her. Like, he just doesn't want to admit that his daughter had to help him.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he's a manly man named Blake.
Yeah. I wrote down, like, what is Blake actually mad at? Like, is he mad because Fallon sold herself for him? Is he mad because Fallon even got involved? Is he mad Cecil? You know what I mean? Like, really, what is the reason? And it sounded like because his daughter helped him. And
even Steven's like, what's worse? Like, me truly loving somebody that's a person, or you being in a loveless marriage? Like, what's more morally wrong?
Yeah, that whole interaction between the two of them was wonderful. Like, it was a perfectly honest conversation. That's where I got like, oh, Fallon just wants power and money, and that's how she was raised. She just wants power and money. She could care less about love or any of that stuff. She just wants power and money, and she doesn't get why Steven doesn't,
even
and why he doesn't want to be cool with that.
Even Ted gets Fallon to admit that she's never actually been in love because he asked her.
Yeah.
And she thinks about it. And she's like, I don't think I have. And I'm like, I'm seeing potential for these guys to be friends. And I wanted to see more.
I mean, like, the whole interaction, I was just like, oh, she's literally trying to do her best Alexis right now to get him to back off because she thinks he's hurting Steven by being around. Like,
yeah.
And she does the whole like intimidation game. You know what I mean? Like, this is not going to work out for you. I promise. We won't let it work out for you. Steven set her off, like, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, she's so cute. Look at her. She's trying real hard.
I think that's all I got. Is there anything else you guys wanted to mention?
One major plot point. I think didn't Blake find out that Cecil was paying for whatever?
Yeah.
He found that out. About the marriage, because he's still for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That he's just mad. That's what I was saying. Like, we don't know what he's mad at. Like, was he mad that like Cecil gave him money? Was he mad that Fallon got involved with Cecil, or was it because Fallon helped him? And I really think that that whole interaction was mostly because Fallon helped him, and God forbid a woman. That's not okay.
Well, when Blake was drunk before the rape happened, he was like, I have a son that's in love with a man and a woman who loves a daughter that's addicted to sex, sleeping with the whole football team. Yeah. I'm like, oh, he really knows everything.
He really does. He's a mastermind.
Yeah.
Sure. I almost feel like, did he have spies in New York on Steven to like know all this?
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, that's how Fallon found out. Like, well, she said in the conversation before that she's like, I didn't know he had a name. I just knew you were with someone, and I knew it was, it was a man. So like, it's kind of like they kind of know, but they don't know. And at the same time, like, I always felt like Fallon and Steven were pretty close, probably as kids, protecting each other and all that stuff through all the mess with Alexis later on down the line and everything. And so I always thought that she was always kind of privy to what he was doing in his life, because I would imagine they talked. This is against speculation on my part. There's no like scenes that show any of this, but that's my assumption most of the time.
Yeah.
And there's just so much happen in all of these episodes. I'm just trying to flip through all of my endless list of notes that I wrote down.
Your episode transcripts.
I wanted to point out, Tommy, did you notice Lindsay's friend Tanya is Lucy's friend Annie in Dallas? It's the same girl. I was like,
I did think she looked familiar. I'm like, I've seen this girl in things, but I didn't know what.
Yeah, that's what. And she was in Dallas more than she was in
Eric
Dynasty.
Eric remembers actors that were in small parts and bigger parts here and like stuff. And he's like, "Did you recognize this person?" I'm like, "No."
No, no. Listen, the problem is like they're in big parts, and you don't remember the one guy that I pointed out from Days is in a whole entire season of Dallas and the season that you saw, and you don't remember him.
He sends me a screenshot, and I'm like, "I've never seen that person before in my life." He's like, "Yes, you have."
I'm like, he's in
He
season
was
3.
oh, poor Tom. He's watching hours of TV, just in, right out. So it's not retained.
I don't have time. There's too much going on. I have to
No,
get rid of. I have to make space.
I was texting her, I'm like, listen, I gotta watch like literally the minute before you get on, because otherwise I won't remember anything that's happened through the whole show. I'll just be like, so what happened? And what's his face said what? No, I gotta watch it like literally. I
I
did
like to
think it
do
was
that
really
too.
yeah, because you gotta remember, you gotta be fresh, right? At the top of mind. I thought it
Mhm.
was pretty funny how easily Walt just forgive and forget all the mess that happened at the wedding. Like he had dogs
Right?
sicked on him. He had his chest up. He's like, "No, man, that's how they do business. That's how rich people do business. It's okay, not a problem. MVD,
You're so
good."
right.
It's
It is really funny.
I laughed because
Anyone?
he like did a deal. He's like, you do deals with handshakes with these people or whatever. And that Matthew went and
yeah,
he's like, I understand Walt made a handshake deal with you. He's like, I'm retracting the handshake, and he like shook the guy's hand.
thank you. Oh yeah, that was great.
Very manly thing back then.
And
Yeah,
Walt
and I
was
love
like,
when
he's like, they think I'm drunk. I'm not drunk.
Yeah. I like that
right,
too.
that's the part. It was
Walter's
actually
just
really messy.
Walter's just playing the
Good.
game. He knows you got to do what you got to do for money.
Also,
So
unrelated to
Exactly.
anything really having to do with the show, but when Matthew went to the bar to go fight the guy that's been an asshole for these episodes, and he got a beer before he started the fight, I was like, "Oh, I haven't had beer in a really long time." I was like, "I want beer."
so
It's been
funny.
like years since I've had beer.
Well, how about you have a beer with the next set of episodes you watch?
You're right.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Yeah, and Matthew fought a lot these last couple of episodes. Matthew was fighting literally
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah.
So at some point, he also came around to the idea of going to therapy with Claudia, but because Claudia found out the truth about him and Crystal, she's like, "No, I'm good." He's like, "I thought you wanted me to go." She's like, "Yeah, no, I changed my mind. I'm done."
She was so pissed. Woo! The heat you felt in that bedroom. She's just in there. She's mad. She is hot. Like you're sitting, she's just not even barely looking at him, barely answering his questions. And I think I wrote, I'm like, oh, so now Matthew wants to go to therapy, and Claudia's like, no, thank you, you cheating asshole. Like I
Mhm.
can't. No, thank oh
Right.
my gosh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
the next episodes are gonna be even crazier. If you can imagine, we're really kind of going
Mhm.
like this.
Well,
And
yeah,
like I
I'm
was saying,
excited actually because I want to see the aftermath of what happened at the end, and
yeah.
We got a
I'm
lot of
excited for the
good
whole
stuff.
Ted situation at the end. So
Mhm.
I feel like these are going to be jam packed. The next six. And you know
They
what?
are.
I remember really disliking Walter. I don't hate him, even though his motives are not the greatest.
He's he's like that weird in between where it's like he understands workers' rights. He doesn't hate you because you're gay. He just thinks it's a moral failing, so you need to get it screwed out. Like you know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's all he
I
has
feel
to
like his
do.
heart is in the right place. He just doesn't go about things the
Yeah,
right way.
right. Yeah.
He's like that
Maybe
crazy
he meant
uncle that everybody has.
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Also, I laughed
Um,
because I paid attention to the credits, and literally it goes like Lindsay, Walter, Matthew. I think it was those three, and I was like, wow, those last three don't make it into season two. They just like chop
no,
that.
it's not. It's fine.
Uh-uh.
It's sad though. I keep thinking about all like what ends up happening, so I'm trying not to have that influence me too hard about how I feel about things. But I just keep thinking to myself like now that I'm watching is so much closer, it's kind of makes those things even sadder. Like what ends up happening all at the end ultimately, and like how we get where we're going is makes more sense. It's kind of like okay, I get it now.
Greg was sitting next to me when Claudia was having the talk in the car with Lindsay about the boy forcing himself on her or whatever. And she was like, you'll grow up and you'll learn about men and like what they need and blah 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 blah. And I looked at her and I was like, never happens. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, she goes boom.
She goes boom.
But like, it's crazy that Claudia just knew immediately what happened. Like, she didn't even ask her. She just sat there and she's like, so you had a boy over, tried to do stuff with you, right? And she's like, yes. And he's like, and then he said some stuff about me, didn't he? And he's like, yes. Like, he said, you're like crazy like me, right? And she's like, yes. And she started crying. And it's like, Claudia. Like, that's why she's so amazing. She's like, she is an amazing mom. Like, she's all these are wonderful things. That's why the whole mess with Crystal and Matthew makes me even more mad at Matthew, because Matthew is just awful. He's an awful husband that makes Claudia go through all of this stuff and Lindsay all at the same time because he just can't keep it together.
I wish they had used Claudia more in the reboot.
Me too.
Yeah, I know.
Because that actress was great too.
Yeah.
So.
She played crazy real good.
She did. She's great.
Like the fact that I love Claudia so much in the original series makes me sad that they could not somehow get her character into the reboot, because I love her so much. She's just
That's
awesome.
why I was sad,
like,
because Claudia's my favorite one of my favorite characters. It was sad for me when she wasn't
to be on a podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before I wrap this up?
I'm good.
No, I think we got all the main things that happened. It's only getting crazier from here. That's all I'm saying. It's just going to get crazier.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another edition of Dynasty Season 1. Next time you see us cover this, we'll be wrapping up Season 1. So exciting things. As always, you can find us on all the socials at Queers and Soaps. And until next time, have a great night. Bye.
Bye.